Episode 1, The Reflection That Blinked Back. It blinked when I didn't. That's the first thing I remember about the mirror, the way its reflection seemed alive in a way no reflection should be. I bought it from a small antique store tucked behind an alley that smelled of rust and old rain. The owner was a quiet old man with cataract eyes and fingers that trembled when he wrapped it in newspaper. "Be careful with it," he said softly. "It remembers." I thought he meant it's fragile. He didn't. The mirror was tall, framed in silver that had long since darkened into the color of bone. When I brought it home to my apartment, I leaned it against the wall facing my bed. That night, I dreamed of faces pressed against glass, dozens of them, staring, whispering without sound. I woke up drenched in sweat. The mirror stood silent. My reflection looked normal. Tired eyes. Messy hair. But then, it blinked. Not a trick of light, not a twitch. A full, deliberate blink. I stumbled back, heart punching my ribs. The reflection didn't move. It only watched me, a half smile forming, the kind that pretends to be human but isn't. I laughed it off the next morning. Told myself I'd been exhausted. Maybe I'd even nodded off standing there. But that night, the reflection smiled first. It happened again. And again. Until I started to notice other things, small, but wrong. The mole on my neck appeared on the opposite side of the reflection. My eyes in the glass looked slightly darker, almost black. And when I yawned one night before bed, the reflection kept its mouth closed, and whispered something I couldn't hear. That's when I stopped sleeping. By the fourth night, I covered the mirror with a blanket. It didn't help. I woke up at 3:15 a.m. to the sound of soft knocking. 3 gentle taps from behind the glass. When I pulled the blanket off, I saw condensation forming inside the mirror, like someone breathing from the other side. My reflection's lips moved again. This time, I heard it. "Let me remember you." My chest went cold. The glass shimmered, rippled, and for a moment, I saw not myself, but another man. His eyes were sunken, his skin gray and cracked, and his lips trembled like he was screaming underwater. Then the glass cleared. My face returned. Morning came. I decided to throw the thing away. But when I tried to lift it, the frame burned my hands. The silver was warm, almost alive. And just before I turned it toward the wall, I noticed fingerprints on the inside of the glass. 10 of them. That night, I placed the mirror outside my apartment door. When I woke up, it was back inside, leaning against my bed exactly where it had always been. Only this time, there were 2 reflections in it. Neither of them moved. Until one blinked. And it wasn't mine. Episode 2, The Woman in the Frame. Her face was older every night. The first time I saw her, she was standing just behind me, not in the room, only in the reflection. A pale woman in a black dress, her hands folded like she'd been waiting for years. Her eyes met mine in the glass, but when I turned around, nothing. Just the quiet hum of my apartment. I told myself I imagined her. Stress. Fatigue. The mirror had already been haunting me with tricks of light and memory. But she kept returning. Always at the edge of the reflection, never moving. Until the 3rd night. That's when she blinked. I froze, toothbrush still in my hand. The woman in the mirror tilted her head, the motion slow and almost tender, like she was studying me. Her hair clung to her face as if wet. I whispered, "Who are you?" Her lips parted, but no sound came. Only fog on the glass, spreading like breath. When I wiped it away, the words appeared, drawn in condensation. "Do you remember me?" I dropped the towel. I had never seen her before. Or maybe I had in dreams, in the corner of my mind where nightmares live. Her face carried something familiar. Not the features, but the sorrow. The same kind of hollow sadness I saw in my mother's eyes before she died. The next morning, I tried to ignore it all. I even covered the mirror with a bedsheet. But when I came home from work, the sheet was on the floor and the woman was closer. Her face pressed against the glass, her skin cracking like old porcelain. Her lips moved again. I leaned in. The sound came faintly, like a whisper caught in static. "Don't forget me." That night, I woke to a strange sound, the creak of wood, the faint rasp of someone breathing beside my bed. I turned on the lamp. Empty room. But in the mirror, the woman stood right behind me, her reflection smiling while mine stared in horror. I spun around, clutching the lamp. Nothing. Just cold air. When I looked back, she was gone, replaced by my own reflection again. But something had changed. My reflection's eyes weren't brown anymore. They were hers. Panic clawed at my chest. I grabbed the mirror to throw it down, but her voice, clear and close, came from inside it. "If you break me." The reflection smiled, slow and terrible. "You'll take my place." My hands froze. For a moment, I thought I saw a second figure behind her, the same man I'd glimpsed before, his face gray and broken, trapped behind the glass. I stumbled back, trembling. The mirror pulsed faintly, as if breathing. Then the woman's face softened. She looked at me with pity. And whispered, "It's too late. I already remember you." The next morning, there were two faces in the mirror again, mine and hers. But this time, she was on my side of the glass. Episode 3, The Forgotten Tenant. The mirror knew someone who never existed. I realized that the morning after the woman appeared on my side of the glass. Her scent lingered, damp roses and candle smoke, but there was no trace of her anywhere. No footprints on the floor. No reflection. Nothing. Only a faint handprint on the inside of the mirror, pressed from the wrong side. That's when I decided to move it out of my bedroom. I dragged it to the living room and leaned it against the wall near the window, trying to forget it. But when sunlight hit the glass, something new shimmered into view. A man. Not me. Not the woman. Someone else. He stood behind my reflection, tall, thin, dressed in old-fashioned clothes that didn't belong to this decade. His head tilted slightly, as if listening. I blinked once. He was gone. But his name stayed. Scratched faintly at the bottom of the frame, hidden under dust and dried varnish, W. Marrow, 1911. I googled the name. Nothing. No records, no obituary, no family. But when I searched my address, I found something that made my blood run cold. 12 years ago, a tenant named Walter Marrow had lived in my apartment. He was found dead in front of his mirror, a broken neck, no signs of struggle. The police ruled it suicide. The mirror had been removed by family. Except there was no record of any family. That night, I stared into the glass again. The apartment lights flickered. And then, faintly, I saw him, Walter, standing behind me in the reflection, his neck bent at an impossible angle. His mouth moved, but the words came from my throat. "Don't forget me." I fell backward, gasping, hand to my neck. The mirror stayed perfectly still, my reflection calm. Only one thing had changed, my shadow now had two heads. I tried everything, salt lines, prayers, even calling a priest. But the moment he stepped into my apartment, his nose started bleeding. He didn't even look at the mirror, he just said, "This glass remembers suffering. It's feeding on it." Then he left without another word. That night, I dreamed of Walter Marrow. He stood at the end of my hallway, holding the mirror. His eyes were black pits, his skin gray as ash. He pointed toward it and whispered, "It's not remembering us, it's replacing us." When I woke, I ran to the living room. The mirror was cracked, not shattered, just a single, jagged line down the middle. And beneath that crack, carved freshly into the wood, were the words, "You're next." I covered it with a blanket again. But when I walked past it an hour later, the blanket was gone. And from behind the glass, a voice that wasn't mine, a man's voice, whispered, "Welcome home, Mr. Marrow." Episode 4, The Photograph. The mirror had always been with me. I just didn't know it. After Walter Marrow's name appeared on the frame, I couldn't stop digging. I searched through every old photo, every scrap of paper that might tell me where this cursed thing came from. Then, one evening, buried in a dusty box my mother had left me before she died, I found it, a photo from my 7th birthday. And there it was. Behind my smiling face, behind the half-eaten cake and the cheap paper balloons, stood the same mirror. Same frame. Same silver edges. Same faint crack that now runs down its center. But the worst part? In that photo, there's a face in the mirror. Not mine. Not anyone who was there that day. A man tall, with hollow eyes and a faint grin, like he was watching me from the other side of time. I remember that day. The air smelled of rain and candle wax. I remember my mother telling me not to look at the mirror after midnight. I thought she was joking. But she wasn't the type to joke about fear. That night, I dreamed of her. She was sitting on my old bed, whispering in the dark. Her hands trembled as she said, "I tried to get rid of it. But it always comes back to its name." "What name?" I asked. She smiled sadly. "Your name." I woke up gasping. The mirror was glowing faintly in the corner, as if it had heard her. My reflection was still, frozen in mid-breath, while the figure behind me moved. It leaned closer. The same man from the photo. His mouth brushed my ear from inside the glass. "I've been waiting for you to remember me." The next day, I took the photo to a friend who restores antiques. When he scanned it under infrared light, the impossible became worse. The figure inside the mirror was different in every frame of the photo roll. Sometimes closer. Sometimes turned away. In the final shot, his hand was on my shoulder. I burned the pictures that night. I thought fire would be enough. But as the paper turned to ash, I saw faces forming in the smoke, dozens, maybe hundreds, flickering like reflections in shattered glass. The mirror hummed in the other room. A low, steady vibration. I tried to ignore it, but the sound grew louder, like hundreds of voices whispering my name. When I finally dared to look, the surface of the glass rippled, showing flashes of my life, childhood, teenage years, every moment I'd ever stood before it. It had been there all along, quietly recording me. And then I saw something that made my heart stop. In the reflection, I wasn't alone. Behind me stood my mother. But her eyes weren't hers. They were his. And the voice that came from her lips wasn't human anymore. You can't remember what never forgot you. Episode 5, The Reflection That Cried. The tears weren't mine. They began as faint streaks, running slowly down the inside of the mirror, silver lines gliding over the glass like rain that didn't belong to this world. At first, I thought it was condensation again. But then I saw it blink. My reflection was crying. Not me, it. I stood perfectly still, dry-eyed, heart drumming in my throat, watching the version of myself in the mirror weep silently. The tears were too real. They pooled at the bottom edge of the glass and shimmered in the light, thick and red as diluted blood. When I touched the mirror, the liquid was warm. I jerked back, trembling. For a moment, my reflection just stared at me, a hollow, broken expression I couldn't remember ever making. Then it smiled. A small, cracked smile that said it knew something I didn't. That night, I dreamt of my mother again. She was sitting beside the mirror, her face half in shadow. "It's trying to feel," she whispered. "It wants to be human again. But it can only feel what you refuse to." When I woke up, there was a pool of water on the floor. It smelled of iron. I tried to move the mirror again, but it was heavier this time, as if filled with something alive. The air around it pulsed faintly, warm and damp, breathing. And when I looked into it again, I wasn't sure which side I was on anymore. My reflection's lips parted. No sound came out at first. Then, a sob, faint and choked, like someone drowning. The surface rippled, and behind my image, I saw her again, the woman in black. Her hands were on my reflection's shoulders, holding it down, forcing it to weep. "Please," I whispered. "Let her go." The woman lifted her head. For the first time, I saw her face clearly. The cracks had spread, pieces of her skin were missing, revealing a hollow surface beneath mirror glass. "She remembers you," she said softly. "But you've forgotten what you did." The room shook. The mirror darkened. Every light flickered out. And for a few heartbeats, all I could see were faces pressed against the other side of the glass, dozens of them, silent, watching. Their eyes leaked tears that turned into streams of red, filling the mirror like rising water. I screamed and stepped back. The sound shattered something deep inside the reflection. My reflection slammed its hands against the glass, leaving prints that stayed there, as if it were trying to escape its own world. Then, silence. The mirror cleared. My reflection was gone. Just black glass now, smooth and empty. I almost felt relief until I saw the droplets running down my own face. I reached up to wipe them. But my cheeks were dry. The tears were falling from my eyes in the mirror. And the voice that came next to low, familiar, echoing from somewhere beneath the floor, whispered, "You're finally starting to remember how it feels." Episode 6, The Whisper of Glass. It started to speak when no one else would. At first, it was only static, a faint crackling sound, like the hum of an old radio left on in another room. But soon, I realized it wasn't random noise. It was breathing. The mirror was breathing. I pressed my ear against the cold glass. The sound came from inside, steady, human, alive. And then it whispered my name. Not the way a person says it. It was too close, like the voice came from the back of my skull. Eli. I stumbled backward, heart pounding. My reflection stood there, motionless, but the voice continued, low and patient. "I remember you." The words scraped like metal dragged over glass. I wanted to run, to throw a blanket over it, to never see it again, but something kept me there. The same quiet pull that keeps you watching a fire even as it burns. The mirror rippled. My reflection began to move out of sync, a heartbeat too slow, then too fast. Its lips trembled before mine did, forming the next words. "You left me here. Who are you?" I whispered. The reflection smiled, but it wasn't my smile. It was crooked, bruised. Behind it, shadows flickered to shapes, outlines of other faces pressed against the inner surface of the mirror. "Say it," the voice hissed. "Say what you did." I shook my head. "I didn't do anything." The glass laughed. A sound sharp enough to make the lights tremble. Then it began to speak in my own voice. Word for word, tone for tone, it repeated the things I'd said over the past week. My phone calls, my muttered thoughts, even the times I'd prayed under my breath. But mixed in were sentences I'd never spoken. Sentences that felt true. She was crying. You turned away. He begged you not to close the door. You left them to burn. Each phrase landed like a blade. I clutched my head, shouting for it to stop, but the voice only grew louder, overlapping itself, hundreds of my voices whispering, screaming, confessing. I couldn't breathe. The room spun. The mirror began to glow faintly, and through the blur of tears, I saw images flicker inside it, a fire, a child's hand, a woman pounding on glass from the other side. My mother's voice echoed faintly within, "It's not haunted, Eli. It's remembering." The glass vibrated, humming like a throat ready to speak again. "Tell me," I whispered, trembling, "what are you?" The reflection leaned forward until its forehead pressed against the glass. When it answered, I felt its breath move the air against my skin. "I am everything you forgot to feel sorry for." And then, for the first time, I heard my reflection inhale. The lights went out. When they came back on, the whisper didn't stop, it came from everywhere. The walls. The floor. The dark spaces between my thoughts. And deep inside the mirror, my reflection smiled and said in my exact voice, "Now it's your turn to speak." Episode 7, The Mirror Keeper. He said every mirror has a guardian. The man showed up at my door just before midnight, thin, stooped, and dressed like someone who had forgotten what century it was. His eyes were pale gray, like glass left too long in the cold. "I heard the whisper," he said, before I could even ask who he was. "It doesn't speak unless it's awake." I didn't invite him in, but he stepped across the threshold anyway, his cane tapping softly against the wooden floor. He stopped in front of the mirror, head bowed, breathing like a man in prayer. "You've had it for how long?" he asked. 2 weeks. He nodded slowly. "Then you've already heard it call your name. You've already seen it cry." My heart stumbled in my chest. "How do you know that?" He looked up, and for a heartbeat, I thought I saw my own reflection in his eyes, not his, mine. "Because I was its keeper once," he whispered. "And before me, there were 12 others. The mirror remembers each of us. Every face it's ever watched die." I tried to speak, but he raised a trembling finger. "Don't interrupt. It listens when we talk about it." He reached into his coat and pulled out a faded photograph, a black and white image of the same mirror, surrounded by people dressed in mourning clothes. Each of their faces was scratched out, except one. His. "That picture was taken in 1911, he said. "The year Walter Merrow hanged himself in front of it." "You've seen his face, haven't you?" I nodded. The old man sighed, as if my answer hurt him. "Every generation, the mirror chooses someone who's touched by guilt. Someone who has forgotten what they've done. It shows them what they refuse to see." I swallowed hard. "You think it chose me?" "I don't think," he said. "I know. It only speaks to its next keeper." He shuffled closer to the mirror. "We tried to destroy it once, fire, salt, even burial. But each time, it came back to the next of us. It's bound to memory, and memory doesn't burn." I felt something stir in the air, a low hum, a breath that wasn't mine. The mirror's surface quivered like a heartbeat. The old man's reflection began to move before he did. He turned to me, fear flickering behind his eyes. "It's awake now," he whispered. "It's hungry." Before I could react, the reflection reached out from the glass. A pale hand pressed against the inside, his hand. The old man gasped, clutching his chest. Blood trickled from his mouth as his body crumpled to the floor. But in the mirror, he was still standing. His reflection stared at me, alive, whole, unbroken. The glass pulsed once, twice, like a heartbeat, and then the old man's voice came from inside it. "It's your turn now, keeper." The surface shimmered. My reflection smiled. And for the first time, I understood what he meant. The mirror doesn't possess people. It preserves them. Episode 8, The Memory of the Dead. It remembered the dead better than the living. After the old man died, the apartment turned silent, the kind of silence that felt listening. His body was gone by morning. Vanished. No blood. No sign of struggle. Only the faint scent of iron and a single word etched into the floorboards beneath the mirror, "Remember." I tried to move out that day. Packed my bags, tore down the curtains, unplugged every light. But as I carried my things past the mirror, I saw something that stopped me cold. My mother's face. Not her reflection, her. The same tired eyes, the same soft mouth that used to hum lullabies when the world felt safe. She stood behind the glass, smiling faintly. "Mom?" I whispered. Her lips moved. "You came back." I dropped the suitcase. My legs refused to move. "You're not real." She tilted her head, the same way she used to when I lied as a kid. "Real enough to remember you." Behind her, more faces began to form, pale, rippling through the mirror like figures rising from water. My father. My childhood friend who drowned in the lake when we were 12. A teacher who died of a stroke. Every person I'd ever lost. Their eyes followed me. Some smiled. Some wept. One, the drowned boy, pressed his palm against the glass, leaving a smear of water that dripped down like tears. "Why are you showing me this?" I whispered. My reflection, if I could still call it that, stepped forward. Its lips moved in perfect sync with my voice. "Because you forgot them." Then it changed. The reflection's eyes darkened, its mouth twisting with sorrow or rage. "You forget everything that hurts. You bury it. And that's why it keeps coming back." I stumbled backward. "Stop. Please." The mirror flickered, and now the faces weren't people I'd known. They were strangers. Dozens of them. Hundreds. Men, women, children. Some screaming, some silent. All staring at me with that same hollow recognition. "Who are they?" I shouted. The voice that answered wasn't mine anymore. It came from the mirror, deep, layered, made of 1,000 whispers. "They are the ones who remembered you." A chill ran through my bones. I didn't know them, and yet, something inside me did. A flicker of images rushed through my mind, the fire, the locked door, the sound of crying behind it. The smell of smoke. My hand reaching for a knob, then pulling away. The mirror trembled. The faces began to fade, one by one, until only a single figure remained, the woman in black. She leaned close, her cracked lips brushing the inside of the glass. "Every keeper has blood on their hands," she said softly. "Even you." The lights went out. The air filled with the sound of breathing, not one, but many, circling me in the dark. When the power returned, I was alone again. The mirror was calm. My reflection looked normal. Except for one thing. There was someone standing behind me. And this time, she didn't vanish when I turned around. Episode 9, The Inverted Room. I woke up on the wrong side of the mirror. At least, that's what it felt like. The air was too still. The silence was heavy, stretched thin like skin over glass. When I opened my eyes, everything looked exactly the same: my bed, my window, the mirror leaning in its usual place. Except the world had reversed. My clock ticked backward. The scar on my left hand was now on the right. Even the sunlight outside burned from the west. For a long time, I just stood there, dizzy, unsure if I was dreaming. Then I looked into the mirror and nearly vomited. It showed my apartment, but empty. No furniture. No color. Just gray walls, endless and cold. And in the center, a faint silhouette me. The other me. He stared through the glass like it was a window. When I lifted my hand, he didn't follow. When I blinked, he didn't. His eyes were open, wide, watching. "Let me out," he whispered. The voice didn't come from him, it came from behind me. I spun around. The room was empty. Still, the air shifted, and the whisper came again, closer this time. "Let me out." The lights flickered. Shadows bled across the floor like ink. I backed away from the mirror, but my reflection moved forward, pressing his palm against the inside of the glass. The surface rippled, soft and liquid. I ran for the door. It wouldn't open. The handle turned endlessly, like it was just decoration. My reflection smiled a slow, patient smile. "Now you understand," he said. "This is what it feels like to be remembered." His voice came from my own mouth. I reached for my throat, but the sound wasn't mine anymore. The mirror shimmered, and suddenly, I was standing on his side. The colors drained from the world. My apartment became an endless corridor of mirrors, stretching in every direction. Each one reflected a different version of me, older, younger, broken, screaming, praying. None of them real. The air was thick, metallic. I could taste the echo of every whisper that had ever passed through the glass. And then I saw them, the faces of the dead, the woman in black, Walter Marrow, the old keeper. All standing within the mirrored corridors, their eyes black and hollow. "You're not inside," they said in unison. "You've always been here." I ran. My footsteps made no sound. Every door led to another reflection, another version of myself. One was crying. Another was burning. Another stood motionless, covered in ash. When I stopped, panting, I saw the mirror again, the real one shimmering at the end of the hallway like a portal back to my world. My real reflection stood there, smiling gently. "Please," I begged. "Let me out." He tilted his head, mirroring the woman in black. "I can't. You broke the balance." I slammed my fists against the glass. "You're me." He leaned close. His voice was calm, almost kind. "I was," he said. "Now I'm real." He reached forward through the glass and placed his hand over mine. The cold burned my skin. Then, with a soft whisper, he said, "Be still. Someone has to stay." The world twisted. The glass hardened. I gasped as the air turned solid in my lungs. And when I looked out again, I saw him, my reflection, walking freely through my apartment, breathing, alive. While I stood frozen behind the glass. Watching. Remembering. Episode 10, The Blood Underneath. There was blood behind the glass. The new me, the one who'd stepped out of the mirror and left me trapped inside, found it 3 nights after taking my place. I saw everything through the reflection, as though the glass had turned into a one-way window. He thought he was free. But the mirror never frees anyone. It only trades. He moved like me, breathed like me, even spoke in my tone. But something was off, a hesitation behind his smile, a flicker of unease every time his eyes crossed the mirror. He began to hear things too, faint knocking from inside the wall where the mirror hung. A slow, rhythmic sound, like a heartbeat wrapped in wood. At first, he ignored it. Then, one night, curiosity won. He pulled the mirror away from the wall. And there it was, the stain. Dark, dried, almost black. A large patch of blood soaked into the wallpaper, its edges forming faint shapes that looked like fingers pressed from the other side. He scraped the paper back, and a carving revealed itself, rough letters gouged deep into the wood. "Remember what you did." His breath hitched. I could feel his fear pulsing through me, the mirror feeding it, savoring it. He pressed his ear against the hollow space behind the wall. Something whispered. He couldn't understand the words, only the rhythm, like a lullaby sung backward. When he pried the panel open, the air that escaped was cold and wet, like breath exhaled after years of silence. Inside was a photograph. Old. Burnt around the edges. It showed a small boy standing beside a woman, his mother, in front of the same mirror. But there was a third figure, half hidden by shadow. A man with a blurred face, one hand resting on the boy's shoulder. The Numi turned the photo over. On the back, in faded ink, was written, "To Eli when you're ready to remember." He dropped it. His hands were shaking now. I wanted to scream through the glass, to warn him, but I couldn't. The mirror held my voice like a fishhook through my throat. He lifted the photo again, looked closer, and froze. The boy's reflection in the picture wasn't his own. It was mine. The wood behind the panel began to pulse. Wet, rhythmic. Red seeped slowly from the cracks, fresh blood, dripping down the wall. It spread beneath his feet, forming a thin pool that mirrored the ceiling above. He stumbled back. The whisper behind the wall grew louder, clearer. "Don't forget me." The sound came from inside the wall, inside the blood, inside me. He ran for the door, but it slammed shut on its own. The mirror hummed. The light dimmed until all that remained was his reflection, and behind it, mine, watching. He pressed his hand to the glass. "What are you?" he asked, voice trembling. I smiled through the surface, the words forming on both sides at once. "I'm the one who stayed." The blood crept upward, covering the carvings, the photo, his shoes, his hands. He screamed, but no sound came out, only bubbles, as if he were drowning on dry land. The mirror gleamed, swallowing the last bit of light. And when the silence returned, the wall was clean again. No blood. No photo. No man. Just a new reflection. And this time, it wasn't either of us. Episode 11, The Mirror Collector. I wasn't the first. But I might be the last. He came at dusk, a man in a heavy black coat, gloved hands, and eyes that glinted like shards of obsidian. He knocked once on the door, then stepped inside before being invited, as if the air itself had granted him permission. I watched from the other side of the mirror. The Numi, the one who had taken my place, froze when he saw the visitor. "Mr. Hale," the man said softly. His voice carried the kind of calm that only comes from someone who's seen too many terrible things. "You have something that belongs to me." My other self blinked. "The mirror?" The man's lips curled into a slow smile. "Ah, so it's awake again." He moved closer, gloved fingers hovering an inch from the glass without touching it. "Do you hear it yet? The breathing? The pulse?" The Numi swallowed. "What are you talking about?" The stranger turned toward him, his gaze sharp enough to cut. "The mirror remembers faces, Mr. Hale. That's why it never breaks. Each reflection is a name, each name a soul. I collect them." "Collect?" He nodded once. "There are 63 mirrors like this one in the world. Each holds its own keeper. Some trapped, some free. This one, he tapped the glass lightly, is the oldest. The heart of them all. I felt the mirror tremble beneath his touch. My prison rippled, light bending like water. The man tilted his head, as though listening to something inside. Yes, he whispered, I can hear you, Eli. My blood froze. He knew my name. He could hear me. He smiled faintly at the glass. You've been inside too long. It's not healthy for a soul to ferment. The new me stepped forward, panic flashing in his eyes. Who are you? I'm what your reflection becomes, the collector said. The mirror doesn't just remember. It evolves. It learns to replace. He reached into his coat and withdrew a small silver vial filled with a dark red liquid. Do you know what this is? The reflection, my reflection, whispered inside my head, blood. The collector nodded, as if hearing it too. The blood of those who tried to destroy the mirrors. A little superstition, a little science. Mix it, and you can summon the memories back. He poured a single drop onto the frame. The mirror hissed a long, wet sound like steam escaping from flesh. Faces flickered across its surface, Walter Marrow, the woman in black, the old keeper, my mother. They screamed in unison. The glass vibrated violently. My reflection cracked down the center, light leaking through like fire beneath ice. The new me fell backward. Stop! What are you doing? The collector smiled without warmth. I'm freeing what was promised to me. The mirror began to glow, not silver, but crimson. The faces inside it twisted, merging, forming something enormous and shapeless. A sound like 1,000 whispers filled the air, growing into a single word. Remember. The man stepped back, adjusting his gloves calmly as chaos rippled through the room. It's awake now, he murmured. Soon, they'll all be awake. He turned toward the door, but before leaving, he glanced once more at the mirror, at me. Hold on to that body, Eli, he said. You'll need it when the others come. Then he was gone. The mirror stilled. The light faded. But something inside me had changed. The glass felt heavier, thicker, as if it were filled with hundreds of unseen eyes, watching, waiting. And for the first time, I realized the truth. The mirror wasn't just remembering faces. It was gathering them. Episode 12, The Ritual of Silver. The only way to erase a face is with blood. That's what the collector had said before he disappeared into the night. His words lingered in the air long after he was gone, like the echo of a confession I didn't understand. For 3 nights, I couldn't sleep. The mirror pulsed faintly in the dark, a heartbeat that wasn't mine. Every so often, whispers rippled beneath the glass, names, half-remembered prayers, cries of people I had never met. But one voice stood out among them all. My own. Help me. The sound came soft and strangled, from deep inside the mirror. I could see him trapped behind the reflection, eyes wide, palms pressed against the inside like a man drowning behind ice. I had to do something. I remembered the silver vial the collector had carried, the thick crimson liquid swirling inside it like liquid memory. The old man had called it the blood of erasure. I found a name for it in one of his discarded books, a leather-bound journal he'd left behind. Ritual of Silver, to cleanse the mirror of its memory. 1 drop for each face. 1 wound for each name. The instructions were carved into the margins in the collector's handwriting. Cut the palm. Mix blood with silver. Whisper the name you wish forgotten. The mirror will drink. The reflection will fade. I didn't know if I believed it, but I was desperate. That night, under a trembling light, I stole one of the collector's vials from his bag. My hand shook as I uncorked it, the metallic scent of blood hit me like rust in smoke. I dipped my finger into the liquid and drew a thin line across the mirror's surface. The glass shivered. A voice spoke low, furious, alive. "Don't!" I froze. My reflection stared back at me, its eyes burning black. Behind it, shadows began to twist, forming faces, the dead, the forgotten, the countless souls the mirror had kept. They were screaming without sound, each one mouthing the same word. "Remember." I pressed my bleeding palm to the glass. The surface turned cold, painfully cold, and then warm, as if drinking. My reflection's skin began to peel away in silvery flakes, vanishing into the mirror like ash into wind. It was working. But then the voices changed. They were no longer strangers. They were names I knew: my mother, Walter Marrow, even the woman in black. "You can't erase what made you," they whispered. "You'll empty yourself." The pain hit me then, sharp, unbearable. My blood smeared across the glass, and in it, I saw flashes of memory I had buried long ago. Fire, smoke, my mother's face behind a locked door, me standing outside, unable to open it. I screamed. The mirror cracked down the center, the sound splitting the room in half. Light spilled from within, silver and red, bleeding together like mercury and flame. When it cleared, my reflection was gone. The mirror was still. The air heavy. And yet, I felt hollow. Something inside me had been taken, or perhaps given. As I stepped back, a faint outline began to form on the mirror again. A new face. One I didn't recognize. It smiled. And whispered, in my voice, "You freed me. Now it's your turn to remember." Episode 13, The Room Without Reflection. I covered every mirror, but it found me in my eyes. After the ritual, everything changed. The mirror no longer spoke. The whispers, the cries, the voices calling from behind the glass gone. For the first time in months, the apartment was silent. But silence isn't peace. Silence is a warning before something begins again. The first sign came the next morning. When I looked into my bathroom mirror, there was nothing, no reflection, no outline, not even a shadow. I waved my hand in front of my face. Nothing. The world around me reflected perfectly, the sink, the tiles, the towel, but not me. I smashed the glass in panic, but the shards remained blank, polished, lifeless. At first, I thought I'd gone mad. Then I realized it wasn't just the bathroom mirror. Every surface refused me: windows, puddles, metal, even the black screen of my phone. I was invisible in a world built on reflections. And yet, I was being watched. It began subtly, a shimmer in the corner of my eye, a shadow that moved when I didn't. I'd catch glimpses of movement in doorknobs, in the curved silver of a spoon, in the pupil of someone else's eye. Always the same faint shape, standing where I stood, moving half a second behind. One evening, I saw her again, the woman in black. Not in glass, but in someone else's gaze. I was on the train, staring at my reflection in the dark window, or rather, the absence of it, when I noticed a woman seated across from me, staring at me too intently. Her pupils dilated, shimmering like drops of ink. And in those pupils, I saw myself. My reflection alive, smiling. I froze. The train lights flickered, and in that instant, the reflection blinked. Not her. Me. I stumbled off at the next stop, my chest tightening. I ran through the station until the crowd thinned, but everywhere I turned, every person I passed, their eyes caught mine, and in each one, I saw a fragment of myself looking back. It had escaped. The mirror hadn't erased my reflection, it had released it. Now it lived in the gaze of others, watching, following, waiting. Each person's eye a doorway. Each glance a reminder. That night, I sealed every reflective surface I could find: tinfoil, tape, black cloth. I even painted over the windows. But the reflection didn't need glass anymore. It whispered from the dark corners, from the walls, from the silence between heartbeats. When I finally dared to open my eyes in the darkness, it was standing at the foot of my bed. Me. But not me. Its face was pale, skin too smooth, too perfect, as if sculpted from memory. And its eyes were hollow, black mirrors that swallowed light. It spoke softly, almost kindly. "You shouldn't have tried to forget," it said. "I'm what's left when you do." I reached for the lamp. My hand passed through air, through me. Because I wasn't standing there anymore. I was in the bed. Frozen. Watching. The reflection leaned closer, a small, satisfied smile on its lips. And for the first time, I understood. I hadn't escaped the mirror. The world had become one. Episode 14, The Daylight Reflection. It appeared under the sun for the first time. Until that day, the reflection had belonged to the dark, to glass and shadow, to the silent hours when light trembles and memory hides. But sunlight had always kept it away. Or so I thought. That morning, I opened my window for the first time in weeks. The world outside was blinding, brilliant, too alive for someone like me. The air smelled of dust and heat. I almost believed I could start over. Then the glass on my coffee table shimmered. At first, I thought it was the sunlight refracting. But the light bent wrong, pooling into a shape, a faint outline, a human silhouette forming from gold and silver. And then I saw him standing there. My reflection. Under daylight. He looked different now. Sharper. Solid. The skin that once shimmered like water now carried shadow and warmth. His eyes, though, were empty, hollow suns burning white. I stumbled backward, breath caught in my chest. For a moment, I thought it might vanish, like all hallucinations do when confronted with reality. But it didn't. It stepped forward. And its shadow fell across the floor, black, tangible, real. That was impossible. Shadows don't belong to reflections. "Why are you here?" I whispered. It smiled. "You let the light in." I felt the air shift, a vibration that hummed deep in my teeth, like the house itself was breathing. All around me, the sunlight dimmed, turned amber, then red. The air thickened, warm and metallic. Outside, people kept walking, unaware that the sun had changed. Birds froze mid-flight. The world seemed to pause as the reality itself was watching. The reflection tilted its head, the movement too fluid, too deliberate. "Do you remember what you look like?" it asked. I wanted to say yes. But the truth scraped the back of my throat. I hadn't seen myself, the real me, in weeks. Maybe months. Maybe longer. It nodded, as if hearing my thought. "Then you understand why I had to come back." The floorboards cracked beneath my feet. The light in the room started to pulse, slower and slower, like a dying heart. Every reflective surface, every bit of glass, metal, even the faint sheen on the walls, began to ripple. I saw faces flicker across them. Hundreds. All the ones the mirror had ever held. All staring, waiting. "What do you want?" I shouted. The reflection's voice was calm, almost sorrowful. "To finish what you started." The light exploded. For an instant, the room was nothing but brilliance, pure white, swallowing everything. And in that blinding moment, I felt the heat of a hand closing around mine. When the light faded, I wasn't in my apartment anymore. I was standing in an endless white field, beneath a sun that cast no shadows. And across from me, hundreds of meters away, stood my reflection, motionless, watching. Then, slowly, it raised its hand and pointed at the sky. I looked up. The sun was cracking like glass. And behind it, something was looking through. Episode 15, The Mirror's Memory. It started to forget me. And that's when I became real. The sky had broken open, the sun splitting like glass, its fragments falling silently through the white field where my reflection and I stood. Each shard shimmered as it fell, and in every one, I saw a different version of myself, a child crying, a man screaming, an old face staring with hollow eyes. The shards didn't touch the ground. They hovered, suspended, spinning, whispering. Every whisper carried a memory. My memory. I heard my mother's voice, "Don't look too long, Eli. Mirrors remember what you try to forget." I tried to cover my ears, but the sound wasn't coming from outside. It was inside my head, threading through my bones. My reflection took a step closer. His voice was quieter now, almost kind. "Do you see what you've done?" I shook my head. "I didn't do this." He smiled faintly, the same way I used to smile when lying to myself. "You did. Every face the mirror ever remembered was one you turned away from. Every scream you ignored. Every name you forgot. The ground beneath us rippled, the white grass bending like waves. I could see faint outlines beneath it, silhouettes of people moving just below the surface, faces pressing upward like they wanted to breathe. "Their memories," I whispered. "No," my reflection said. "Their deaths." He raised his hand, and the field shimmered into a vast mirror. The whole world turned reflective, sky, ground, even the air itself gleaming like silver. My reflection's voice echoed around me, multiplied 1,000 times. "The mirror didn't choose you, Eli. You chose it." Images burst through the glass, fire swallowing a small house, a locked door, my mother pounding on it from the other side. I remembered the heat, the fear, the way I ran instead of opening it. I had told myself I was too young. That I couldn't save her. But the truth had been simpler, I didn't look back. The mirror had. And it never forgot. My knees hit the ground. "Please," I begged. "Take it back. Take me back." The reflection knelt beside me. His hand rested on my shoulder. It felt warm, real. "It's not about taking," he said softly. "It's about remembering." The shards of the sky began to rise, drawn toward us. They circled, spinning faster, slicing light into ribbons. I saw my faces in all of them, not reflections now, but fragments of a soul cut too many times. My reflection leaned close. "When a mirror forgets you, Eli, you stop existing. But when you remember yourself," he touched my chest, "you become what the mirror needs." Light burst from within me. I screamed, not from pain, but from recognition. Every memory, every sin, every moment I had buried poured through me. My mother's face. Walter Merrow's eyes. The woman in black. All of them merging into one endless, blinding truth. When the light faded, the field was gone. The mirror stood alone again, cracked and silent. And in its surface, for the first time, there was no reflection at all. Just light. A whisper followed, drifting through the air like breath. "Now the mirror remembers nothing." And somewhere deep inside that silence, I smiled. Because finally, neither did I. Episode 16, The Final Reflection. There were two of us now. When the light from the shattered sky faded, I found myself standing in a room I almost recognized, my apartment, but not quite. The walls breathed, slow and quiet, like they were alive. Every shadow curved wrong, and the air shimmered with silver dust, as if someone had ground up sunlight and scattered it through the air. He was there too. My reflection. The one who'd escaped the glass. He stood by the window, watching the horizon where the sun cracked like a broken mirror. His outline trembled, sometimes human, sometimes not. When he turned, I felt the movement echo in my bones. "It's ending," he said softly. "The mirror can't hold us both anymore." I wanted to speak, but my throat burned. The words came out as a whisper. "What are you?" He smiled, tired, sad. "I'm what you forgot to be." He stepped closer. Every movement felt like a memory playing backward, the gestures, the tilt of his head, the flicker of guilt behind the eyes. All mine, but twisted through time. When the mirror remembered too much, it needed balance, he said. A keeper and a reflection. One to live, one to remember. But you, he pointed at me, his voice trembling. You tried to erase it. You made the mirror forget. He reached out, fingertips grazing the air between us. The space rippled, and the walls filled with faces, hundreds, thousands, watching. The dead, the lost, the versions of me that had existed across 1,000 reflections. What happens now? I asked. He tilted his head. Now, one of us becomes real. The air thickened. Light twisted between us like molten glass. I felt the pull, gentle at first, then violent. My body was being dragged toward him, or maybe he toward me. The world vibrated, cracking around us. The mirror on the wall began to melt, the silver running like blood. And in its surface, I saw us, two silhouettes, merging. I don't want to die, I said. You already did, he answered. When you stopped remembering. I fought the pull, but it was useless. Our fingers met, and the instant they touched, I saw everything, every face the mirror had ever kept, every life it had stolen, every scream it had silenced. They weren't strangers. They were all me. 1,000 versions of Eli. The room imploded into light. When the brightness faded, there was only one of us left. I looked around, the wall still, the mirror whole again. My hands were warm, my breath real. For a fleeting moment, I believed I'd won. But then I looked into the mirror. The reflection stared back. Same face. Same eyes. But when I moved, it didn't. It smiled. And the voice that came from behind the glass wasn't mine anymore. You chose to live, it said softly. Now I'll remember. The mirror shimmered, sealing shut with a faint pulse, like a heart locking in rhythm. And in that moment, I understood. No one ever escapes the mirror. It just decides which side you belong to. Episode 17, The House of Mirrors. Every mirror I ever owned started calling me back. It began with the smallest one, the hand mirror I had left in a drawer years ago. I heard it first, faint as a sigh, a whisper of silver cutting through the silence. Then another joined in, the bathroom mirror, humming low, like a heart remembering how to beat. By midnight, the sound filled the apartment, a chorus of glass breathing in unison. I stood in the middle of it all, frozen. Every surface shimmered, alive. The first voice came from behind me, quiet, almost tender. Eli. I turned. My reflection stood in the hallway mirror, calm, composed, smiling like I used to when I believed in forgiveness. Behind it, 1,000 more faces rippled, faint, flickering, layered one atop another like overlapping film reels. Each one of them me. The whisper swelled, spreading through the air like wind through leaves. Mirrors in other rooms began to murmur too, not in unison, but in rhythm. A heartbeat of reflections. I took a step back. What do you want from me? My reflection tilted its head. Not from you. Through you. The words vibrated against my ribs. I felt the pull, not physical, but something deeper, like my memories were being drawn toward the glass. My chest tightened as images spilled into the room, moments I'd lived and forgotten, people I'd hurt, faces I'd tried to bury. They drifted toward the mirrors like moths to flame. One by one, the mirrors lit up doorways of silver fire. And then, the walls began to melt. My apartment stretched, fractured, expanded until I was standing in an endless corridor made entirely of mirrors. Every direction reflected infinity, an ocean of my own faces staring back. Each one whispered something different. Some begged. Some accused. Some simply smiled. This is the house of mirrors, my reflection said. Where memory lives after it leaves you. I turned, dizzy, terrified. How do I get out? You don't, he said gently. You were the way out. The mirrors nearest to me began to ripple, their surfaces softening like liquid metal. Hands emerged, dozens of them pale, trembling, reaching. I backed away, heart hammering. Their fingertips brushed my skin, cold and wet like rain falling backward. I ran. But every corridor led to more mirrors, more faces, more versions of myself. One was bleeding. One was blind. One whispered prayers in a language I didn't know. Each reflection I passed seemed to absorb a piece of me, a breath, a heartbeat, a memory. And then I saw it. At the far end of the endless corridor stood the original mirror, the one that had started everything. Its surface glowed faintly, pulsing like a living thing. In its frame were carved hundreds of names, all the keepers who had come before. At the bottom, a fresh name was etching itself, letter by letter. Eli Hale. I fell to my knees. Please, I whispered. Let me remember. Let me end it. The mirror answered with a sound like laughter breaking in reverse. Endings are for those who forget, it said. You were made to remember. Light burst from the glass, flooding the corridor. Every reflection screamed, every version of me shattering, folding inward, merging. I felt them all, their memories, their pain, their love, their death, collapsing into one unbearable truth. When the light faded, there was silence. Only one reflection remained. Mine. But as I reached out to touch the glass, I realized it wasn't mimicking me anymore. It was watching. Waiting. Alive. Episode 18, The Mirror That Remembered Faces, Finale. Someone else just bought the mirror. It stood there, silent and perfect, in the back corner of a dusty antique shop. The kind of place that smells of old books and rain-soaked wood, where every object hums faintly with a memory you can't quite name. The shopkeeper didn't know where it came from. He said it arrived without warning one morning, leaning against the door as if it had walked there itself. Its silver frame was tarnished, cracked in a single clean line down the middle, like a wound that refused to close. A young woman stood before it now. She was small, with a quiet face and eyes that carried the weight of sleepless nights. Her fingers traced the edge of the frame. It's beautiful, she whispered. The shopkeeper smiled nervously. Old piece. Been through a lot, I'd say. You want it? She nodded. When she carried it home, the sky was gray, swollen with rain. The reflection of the city lights shimmered in the glass, distorted, alive, as if it were already learning the world anew. She placed it gently in her apartment, against the wall facing her bed. And for a moment, nothing happened. Then the lights flickered. She turned, startled, but the room was still. Only her reflection, faint, softer than she remembered, stared back. Her eyes looked older somehow, sadder. She reached out to touch the glass. Her reflection smiled first. She froze. For a heartbeat, the air shifted, that subtle wrongness only the soul can recognize. The smile faded, and something else took its place. A face she didn't know, hovering just behind her own. A man's face. His eyes were dark, his expression calm. Eli Hale. The name pulsed through the glass, though no one spoke it. The woman stepped closer, breath trembling. "Who are you?" she whispered. The mirror fogged, as if exhaling. And on the misted surface, a single word appeared, written from the inside. Remember. Her heart pounded. She wiped the glass, and the reflection blinked when she didn't. From somewhere deep within, faint and fractured, came the sound of hundreds of whispers, layered together like threads of wind. Faces began to ripple across the surface, fleeting, ghostly, gone before they were seen. The woman stumbled backward. The mirror steadied itself. One voice, lower than the rest, spoke clearly from within. "You've been chosen." The light in the room dimmed. The air turned heavy. The reflection smiled again, wider this time, almost gentle. The woman stood frozen, tears filling her eyes though she didn't know why. Chosen for what? The voice in the glass sighed. To remember. The clock struck 3:15 a.m., the same hour it always begins. The woman's reflection blinked again, and this time, she didn't. The mirror shimmered, its crack closing slowly, healing itself as though drawing breath after a long sleep. And somewhere, deep inside the silver, a faint image stirred, the shape of Eli, smiling through the glass, watching. Outside, dawn began to rise, pale and innocent. The city stretched awake, unaware that another face had joined the mirror's memory. It sat quietly in her bedroom, humming softly, patient as time itself. And if you listened close enough, you could almost hear it whisper. Every mirror remembers. It's only a matter of when yours begins to.
Epilogue, the memory that watched back. They say the mirror was lost again after that. The woman, the one who brought it home, was never found. Her apartment was discovered days later, door unlocked, light still burning, a faint humming sound coming from the bedroom. There was no blood, no struggle, nothing disturbed, except the mirror. It stood perfectly upright in the center of the room, untouched, unbroken, its surface gleaming with impossible clarity. And on the floor before it, the faint outline of a shadow that didn't belong to anyone. No one could look into it for long. The shopkeeper who came to retrieve it said he saw faces moving in the glass, hundreds of them, turning slowly toward him, as though recognizing an old friend. He covered it with a sheet, swore never to sell it again, and left it in the back of his store. But people talk. They always do. And soon enough, someone else will hear the rumor about the mirror that hums, the one that remembers. Sometimes, late at night, passers-by claim they hear whispering through the cracks of the shop door. Just one word, repeated softly. Remember. And if you press your ear close enough, if you're foolish enough to lift the sheet, the silver glass will tremble ever so slightly, like it's breathing, waiting, dreaming. Inside, the faces will turn toward you, and among them, one will smile. Because the mirror never forgets. It only waits. And perhaps, right now, as you read this, you can see a faint movement in the corner of your own reflection. Don't look too long. It might already be remembering you.